The 11 museum secrets you were never meant to see. What museums hide may change everything we know about history. They stand silent, behind glass, under perfect lights. Temples of knowledge built to preserve humanity's past. But what if these museums, the very places we trust to protect truth, are also the ones hiding it? In the heart of London, beneath the British Museum, there's a vault the public will never see. In Washington, an artifact was discovered, photographed once, and then vanished without explanation. In Cairo, a curator once claimed he handled an object that should not exist, a relic that rewrote the timeline of Egyptian civilization. Every museum has its secrets, locked rooms, restricted collections, artifacts labeled undocumented, misclassified, or simply off display. But what if the truth isn't lost to time? What if it's being deliberately hidden from us? This is not a story about dust-covered relics or forgotten ruins. It's about power. Because every artifact tells a story, and some stories are too dangerous to tell. These are the objects that challenge the official narrative, that whisper of civilizations erased, technologies unexplained, and histories rewritten by those who decide what the world is allowed to remember. Over the next hour, we'll step beyond the velvet ropes and the carefully crafted exhibits and enter the shadows of forbidden history. From tablets that describe machines centuries before they should exist, to sculptures that resemble visitors from the stars, to artifacts so controversial they've been locked away for decades. Why are they hidden? Who decides what the public can see? And what if the real history of humanity lies not in what's displayed, but in what's concealed? You're about to see 11 museum secrets that were never meant to be seen. A journey through vaults, archives, and sealed rooms, where the past was rewritten and the truth buried. But as we uncover each hidden piece, remember this: the deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes that history isn't written by the victors, it's curated by them. Welcome to the side of history they never wanted you to find. This is the 11 museum secrets you were never meant to see. Topic 1. The hidden vaults. Every great museum has two worlds, the one we see and the one we never will. Behind the echo of footsteps and the gleam of polished glass, there's another realm, hidden beneath foundations of marble and stone. Locked corridors, unmarked elevators, and vast basements that stretch like catacombs beneath the cities we walk every day. Curators call them restricted collections, but to those who have glimpsed their contents, they are something else entirely: the archives of the forbidden. Beneath the British Museum in London lies one of the largest underground storage complexes on Earth, a labyrinth of steel doors and numbered aisles, holding more than 6 million artifacts that the public will never see. The official reason: lack of space, fragile condition, ongoing research. But whispers from within speak of something different, items that defy the accepted story of human history. Artifacts too advanced, too unexplainable, or too disturbing to ever be displayed under the light of public scrutiny. One former staff member described a sealed crate found deep in the sublevels, its label partially erased. Inside, he claimed, was a statue unearthed in Iraq, humanoid, with proportions that seemed unnatural, and markings carved in a language no expert could identify. When independent researchers requested to examine it, the crate was reclassified, and then vanished from the inventory. Across the ocean, in the archives of the Smithsonian Institution, similar stories persist. Reports of enormous skeletons unearthed in North America during the 19th century, human-like, yet massive, as if belonging to a race of giants. Old newspaper clippings show photographs, but when those images resurfaced, the bones were gone. The Smithsonian denied they ever existed. And in the Louvre, beneath the shimmering floors of Paris, lies another secret vault, one accessible only to a select few. It houses relics gathered from colonial expeditions long ago, items considered culturally sensitive. But some of these artifacts, according to insiders, depict machines, symbols, and beings that don't match the civilizations that supposedly made them. To the world above, museums are cathedrals of truth. But to those who know what lies below, they are sanctuaries of silence, guardians not just of discovery, but of deliberate forgetting. For every artifact we admire behind glass, there may be hundreds locked in darkness. Objects that do not fit, that challenge the timeline, that whisper of knowledge we've chosen not to remember. Why are they hidden? Preservation? Politics? Or perhaps protection? Not of the artifacts, but of the narrative itself. Because in the end, history isn't only about what was found. It's also about what was buried again. And somewhere, beneath layers of concrete, dust, and silence, lies evidence, waiting to change everything we think we know about our past. Topic 2. The Lost Collections. History is meant to be preserved, carefully catalogued, protected, and shared. But what happens when preservation turns into disappearance? When collections once celebrated simply vanish? Across the world, there are records of discoveries that slipped into obscurity, artifacts excavated, documented, and then erased from public memory. Some were said to be misplaced, others destroyed in wars or lost to accidents, but a few were quietly hidden, as if their existence itself was a problem. In 1902, an excavation team in Egypt uncovered a series of stone figures, unlike anything known from that era. They were small, elongated, with strange metallic inlays that shimmered in the torchlight, delicate, yet impossibly advanced. The lead archaeologist took detailed notes, sent samples to be analyzed, and then the shipment disappeared somewhere between Luxor and Cairo. His notes were confiscated by the Antiquities Department. His findings never published. Months later, he was found dead in his study. The cause? Heart failure. In Italy, deep within the archives of the Vatican museums, lies what insiders call la collezione proibita, the forbidden collection. It is said to contain scrolls, sculptures, and tablets gathered over centuries from across the world, objects that predate known civilizations or contradict accepted theology. Access is granted to only a handful of scholars. Those who have seen inside describe texts written in languages unclassified by modern linguists. A few speak of metal discs engraved with celestial maps thousands of years older than any known record of astronomy. The Church claims it safeguards history, but others believe it safeguards a version of history, the one humanity is allowed to remember. Then there's the case of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. During excavations in the 1990s, several crates of carved stones and fragments with unknown symbols were logged. They were supposed to be sent for carbon dating. When researchers later requested access, the crates were missing. Officials said they were lost during transfer. The excavation logs were rewritten to exclude the items entirely. And in Baghdad, after the invasion of 2003, the National Museum was looted, thousands of ancient artifacts stolen or destroyed. Yet some of the most important pieces, the ones linking Sumerian and Egyptian origins, had already been moved to undisclosed safe locations. No one knows where those are. Some suspect they never left official hands. Each disappearance might seem like coincidence, until you trace the pattern. The same cycle repeats: discovery, controversy, disappearance, denial. It's as if history itself is being edited in real time. For every artifact that reaches the light, another vanishes into shadow. And the deeper we look, the more it feels deliberate. Not the chaos of loss, but the precision of omission. Perhaps these missing relics are not gone at all. Perhaps they wait, locked away in silence, guardians of a truth the world isn't ready to face. Because the greatest collections may not be lost by accident, but by design. Topic 3. The forbidden artifacts. Some discoveries don't just challenge history, they threaten to rewrite it. And when they do, they are quietly removed, sealed away, or dismissed as fakes. These are the forbidden artifacts, the evidence that refuses to fit. Take the London hammer, found in the 1930s in Texas, a tool encased in rock dated at more than 100 million years old. Its handle fossilized, its metal head impossibly pure. Scientists called it an anomaly. Museums labeled it unverified. But analysis revealed a level of metallurgy no modern foundry could replicate without industrial technology. If genuine, it means someone, or something, forged iron before humanity even existed. Then there's the Antikythera mechanism, pulled from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. A complex device of bronze gears that predicted planetary movements and eclipses with precision unmatched until modern times. Experts call it the first analog computer. But the question remains, how could such sophistication exist over 2,000 years ago, with no precedent and no explanation? The answer, as usual, was hidden behind museum walls. In South Africa, miners uncovered perfectly round metallic spheres, some with grooves so precise they seemed machined. They were found in rock formations billions of years old. Scientists argued they were natural, but natural formations do not have symmetrical carvings. These spheres were collected, tested, and locked away. In Peru, thousands of engraved stones were found depicting scenes impossible for their time. Men riding dinosaurs, performing complex surgeries, studying the stars through telescopic instruments. Known as the Ica stones, they became the center of controversy. Some claimed they were hoaxes. Others pointed out that the engravings matched fossil records unknown when the stones were first found. The collection disappeared from public view, scattered between private owners and unnamed institutions. And then there's the mystery of the Baigong pipes in China, metallic tubes embedded in solid rock near Mount Baigong. Tests showed they were over 150,000 years old. Their composition suggested smelting. The site was briefly open to research, then abruptly closed by authorities. Today, even the road leading to it is blocked. Every artifact that defies logic meets the same fate: denial, ridicule, disappearance. Officially, these objects are explained away. Unofficially, they haunt the edges of science, reminders of a truth that refuses to die. Perhaps they were remnants of an earlier age of civilization, one erased by time or something even greater. Or maybe they were left behind intentionally, as clues for when humanity was ready to see again. Because these forbidden artifacts share one message across continents and millennia. We have been here before, and each time we forget, or are made to forget. The question is no longer if such evidence exists, but how much longer it can be kept from view. Topic 4. The Myth Keepers. Long before the first museum, there were storytellers. Before curators, there were elders gathered by the fire, weaving words into memory. Before history was written, it was sung, carried through generations by those who refused to let the past die. We call them myths. But what if they weren't imagination at all? What if they were coded memory, fragments of forgotten truth disguised as stories? Across every ancient culture, separated by oceans and millennia, the same tales echo. Gods descending from the heavens, floods that drowned entire worlds. Beings of light who taught humankind the secrets of knowledge, of building, of the stars. In Sumeria, they were called the Anunnaki, those who came from the sky. In Egypt, Thoth gave humanity the gift of writing and wisdom. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl emerged from the sea, teaching art, mathematics, and order. Different names, different continents, the same story, civilization arriving too suddenly to be coincidence. Could these ancient gods have been something else? Not deities, but remnants of a forgotten people, survivors of an age erased from time? Or perhaps teachers from beyond, ensuring that fragments of truth endured even after the world burned? In every myth, knowledge is both gift and curse. Prometheus stole fire from the gods and was punished. The builders of Babel reached for heaven and were silenced. Atlantis was destroyed because it knew too much. Over and over the message remains. Humanity once held power beyond imagination and lost it. Maybe these myths are not fiction but warning, a way to protect knowledge when the world wasn't ready for it. When artifacts could be destroyed, stories could survive. A legend cannot be confiscated. Look closely, and you see the same symbols repeating across the earth. Spirals, serpents, stars. The serpent of the Mayans, the spiral of the Celts, the star of Egypt's Dendera ceiling. Different cultures, the same language, geometry, pattern, light. Were they speaking to each other, or all remembering the same origin? Perhaps that is why myths endure, because truth, when forbidden, becomes story, and story, when remembered long enough, becomes eternal. The myth keepers may have known this, that knowledge buried in words would outlast the fall of empires, that even if relics were sealed in vaults, the whispers of gods and lost civilizations would echo in the hearts of storytellers. And so, as museums guard the artifacts of the visible world, myths guard the invisible ones. Together, they form the two halves of a single secret, one spoken through stone, the other through story. Because even when history is silenced, the myths remember. Topic 5. The science of suppression. Science was born to seek truth, to question, to prove, to illuminate. But somewhere along the way, it began to build walls around its own discoveries, turning curiosity into control. In theory, science should be free. In practice, it is bound by politics, funding, and reputation. A discovery that fits the accepted timeline is celebrated. One that doesn't becomes a problem. When a geologist in Mexico unearthed human footprints fossilized in volcanic ash, millions of years old, he thought he had made the find of a lifetime. Instead, his career ended. The prints were declared natural formations. The site sealed off, and his research erased from publication archives. It wasn't that his evidence was disproven, it was simply too early for science to accept. In laboratories and universities around the world, new findings are filtered through invisible gates. Before a paper is reviewed, it must be approved by the same academic circles invested in protecting their own theories. If a discovery supports the narrative, it is funded. If it threatens to change it, it is forgotten. History repeats itself. Galileo silenced for saying the earth moves. Tesla dismissed for seeing energy as infinite. Schliemann ridiculed for believing in Troy until he found it. The pattern never changes. Those who question too deeply are labeled heretics first, visionaries later. But for every suppressed truth, there is a quiet record, a journal, a photograph, a fragment that survives in the margins of forgotten archives. A retired archaeologist once said, "We don't destroy what doesn't fit. We simply never speak of it." And that is the essence of modern suppression. No need for censorship when silence is easier and far more effective. Because the greatest discoveries don't disappear in flames. They fade in paperwork. They drown in bureaucracy. They are buried beneath layers of polite dismissal. Yet, in the digital age, silence is harder to maintain. Independent researchers, forgotten letters, and declassified files are beginning to resurface. Piece by piece, the fragments connect. The suppressed story of human history, a version older, broader, and stranger than anyone imagined, is starting to breathe again. Maybe science was never the enemy. Maybe it was the fear of losing control. The fear that truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Because real discovery does not just change what we know, it changes who we are. And that, for some, is the most dangerous truth of all. Topic 6. The witnesses. Every secret leaves a trace. And sometimes that trace speaks, not through data, but through those who can no longer stay silent. Throughout the last century, a quiet chorus of voices has emerged from the shadows of the world's museums and archives. Former curators, archaeologists, and technicians, people who once believed they were serving history, began to reveal what they had truly seen. One of them was a technician at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. He claimed that late one evening, he was ordered to transport a sealed crate marked unverified biological samples. Inside, he said, were bones unlike any known species, humanoid, yet enormous. Entire skeletons of beings nearly twice the size of modern humans. When he questioned it, his supervisor told him, "You didn't see this." A week later, his employment was terminated. His statement briefly circulated online, then vanished from every official record. Another account came from an archaeologist working along the Nile in the 1990s. She and her team uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the foundations of an ancient temple, a room untouched for thousands of years. Inside were objects she described as metallic tablets, covered in hieroglyphs that seemed modern, almost mechanical. She alerted the Ministry of Antiquities. Within days, the chamber was resealed, guarded by soldiers. Her excavation license was revoked. She left Egypt soon after, never speaking publicly again. In 2014, a retired curator from the British Museum came forward with his own confession. He claimed there were entire collections intentionally mislabeled, artifacts catalogued under fake names or hidden within miscellaneous archives. Some items were officially recorded as replicas, though he insisted they were authentic and extraordinary. "We were told to protect history," he said, "but sometimes that meant hiding it." A geologist from South America shared a similar fate. After discovering tools embedded in strata millions of years old, he presented his findings to his university board. His paper was rejected for methodological inconsistencies. He published independently online, where his data was ignored, until independent analysis confirmed his results. By then, his funding was gone. Some of these witnesses have vanished from public life. Others continue to speak quietly, in interviews that never make headlines. Their stories align in disturbing ways: identical methods of silencing, consistent language in official denials, even shared phrases like "for further study" or misidentified samples. They speak of archives where time stands still, of sealed rooms that hum with air conditioning but hold no official record, of artifacts that never existed, yet somehow have storage codes and security tags. Individually, these stories sound unbelievable. Together, they paint a pattern too deliberate to dismiss. And perhaps the most haunting detail is this: many of these people did not start as skeptics. They believed in their institutions, in truth, in the pursuit of knowledge. Until one day, they saw something they could never unsee. They tried to protect history, until they realized they were protecting a lie. Because when enough witnesses tell the same impossible story, it stops being a rumor and becomes evidence. Topic 7. The patterns of silence. At first, these stories seem like coincidences, a misplaced artifact here, a dismissed discovery there. But patterns have a way of emerging, if you're willing to look long enough. Across continents, across decades, the same rhythm repeats itself. Discovery, denial, disappearance. From the British Museum to the Smithsonian, from Cairo to Istanbul, the sequence never changes. The institutions differ, the artifacts vary, But the outcome is always identical: silence. Researchers who challenge convention lose their funding. Curators who speak are transferred or dismissed. Journalists who investigate are ignored. And each time the explanation is the same: there is no verified evidence. But what does no evidence mean in a world where evidence can vanish overnight? A digital archivist once called it the quietest censorship imaginable. Not the burning of books, but the erasure of files. Not suppression through violence, but through absence. In the age of information, invisibility is the perfect weapon. The same mechanism that preserves history can also erase it, gently, quietly, efficiently. All it takes is one altered catalog entry, one reclassified document, one missing photograph. And in an instant, a discovery becomes a myth. Some call it incompetence, others see orchestration. But the result is the same: a global pattern of selective amnesia, a history that forgets on purpose. In France, entire lists of colonial acquisitions were updated, removing sensitive objects from the record. In Mexico, storage manifests for ancient relics were rewritten, entire sections missing. In Germany, customs archives tracking the shipment of archaeological materials were wiped clean. Coincidence? Or choreography? The deeper you look, the more the pattern comes into focus. It doesn't require conspiracy, only compliance. Academics afraid to lose grants, curators afraid to lose careers, administrators afraid to lose order. The silence sustains itself. And yet, even silence leaves an echo. Every missing record points to something that once existed. Every denial confirms that there was something to deny. Every gap in history is a shape left behind, the outline of the truth that used to be there. This is not about a single artifact or a single institution. It's about a structure of forgetting, a mechanism that decides which truths are remembered and which are quietly removed. But no wall of secrecy stands forever. The pattern, once recognized, begins to break. Because every time a photograph leaks, a document resurfaces, a witness speaks, the silence fractures. And in those fractures, light begins to pour through. That is how the truth returns, not in revelation, but in persistence, piece by piece, voice by voice, until the pattern of silence collapses under the weight of its own denial. Topic 8. The last truth beneath the glass. Every mystery, no matter how deep, eventually leads to a reflection. And in that reflection, we find ourselves staring back. For centuries, museums have been seen as sanctuaries of memory, monuments to our progress, evidence that humanity has evolved through time and understanding. But what if these halls of knowledge were never just about what we've learned, but about what we've been taught to forget? Beneath the glass, under the calm hum of spotlights, lie fragments of stories stripped of their voices. Each relic displayed is framed within boundaries of comfort, a label, a date, a theory. Yet beyond those frames, entire worlds once lived, dreamed, and vanished. Perhaps some of them were erased because they didn't fit. Perhaps others were buried because they fit too well. Every civilization builds its own version of truth. The Egyptians buried it under stone. The Greeks sculpted it in marble. The church sealed it in vaults. And now, we archive it in databases that can be edited with a single click. Maybe history has always been a mirror, one that reflects only what power allows us to see. And every so often, a crack appears, an artifact out of place, a witness ignored, a truth too persistent to die. The Black Sea, once land, now ocean, hides the remains of villages that prove entire civilizations can vanish overnight. The Sahara conceals rivers that once fed cities, and the museums of the modern world conceal stories that could redefine everything we think we know about where we came from. But the truth has a strange habit of surviving. It hides in old journals, in forgotten storage rooms, in the hands of those who refuse to stop looking. Every time someone questions the official narrative, the silence trembles a little. And through those cracks, reality begins to seep back in. Maybe one day the vaults will open, maybe the records will resurface, or maybe the next great discovery won't come from within these institutions at all, but from the people who finally stopped waiting for permission to seek the truth. Because knowledge is not something that can be owned. It's something that waits, patiently, for those who dare to see. So when you walk through those silent halls again, and your reflection appears on the glass, remember, you are looking not just at the past, but at a choice. The choice between what we are told to believe and what we're willing to uncover. And if you listen closely, beneath the hum of lights and the stillness of air-conditioned silence, you might hear it. The faint whisper of history calling out, asking to be remembered. The search continues. For those who still question, see you in the next discovery.